Do you feel you're enough? Are you full of doubt about your abilities? Have people told you that you're not good enough? Are you full of anxiety about your life? Well, if you are, don't worry, because today that's what we're talking about in this video. And I have some things I'd like to share with you about that. Now, this video came about last night when my wife was talking about a fellow worker of hers who is absolutely brilliant at her job, but doesn't think so. She texted my wife last night with something about work and started to berate herself and tell herself that she wasn't very good, and was telling Debs that she felt that Debs was much better than she was at the job. And Debs replied, putting her back in her place and telling her the truth about how she was really good at her job and how she'd helped Debs so much when she started there and gave her the confidence. And it was that conversation that I had with Debs that brought about this video. Now, I'm James, and I try to give you advice and encouragement that's going to help you make your life a little more joyful as you move on. The fact is, if you don't feel you're enough, you're actually wrong, because you are. Look back over your life. Look at the things that have gone wrong. Look at the things that have gone right. And when you go through them all and you look at where you are now, looking back, you have to realise that you've come through so much. And you've come through that so much because you're good enough to have done it. You have got the resilience. You have got the strength to overcome all of your situations and get to where you are today. With Christmas around the corner, it's a good time to take a step back and have a look with a detached view at how your life has gone, and to do it in such a way as it's not a negative thing. When you look at the things that have been negative in your life, and there have been loads, that happens to all of us. But when you realise the things that you've overcome, the obstacles you've climbed over, and the things that you've done to achieve what you've achieved today, are just magnificent, you know. You may feel like that you're nobody special and that you haven't achieved much in your life. But I'm here to tell you that you have. Over the years, you have learned so much. If you look back on your experiences of 20 years ago, perhaps, you may think that you weren't clever and you didn't know what you were doing and you were incompetent and all that kind of stuff. But you're not the person that you were then. And even that is such a huge jump that you've got to be pleased with yourself, because you now have developed experience and wisdom. Over the years, that comes. You don't get that when you're young. The trouble with being young is our confidence isn't high enough. We may think it is, but we get slapped about a bit. That continues all through life. But when you're young, it's when you're defining yourself, if you like. When you feel that sense of self where you're making your way into the world. And all those things that beat you back hurt. And what you have to do is let go of all those doubts and fears that you had from 20 years ago, because they are not who you are today. All those things that you look back on with regret and sometimes with guilt for the things that you've done, you have to let them go, because you are not the same person now that you were then. And the fact is, you've got to where you are. So you are enough. You've got to have been enough, because you wouldn't have overcome all those things that you have overcome along the way. Now, they may not seem like momentous things, but the fact is, at some stage in your life, the things that held you back were, and you overcame them. And the problem is that a lot of us get people talk down to us. And sadly, for many of us, it's people we're close to, our family, our friends. They may not know the damage that they're doing because they're trying to give you advice to help you move on. But sometimes that negativity, it's like being kicked in the gut, if you like. And all those times we get knocked down, we start to think that's who we are, but you're not. All of our stories are different, but I bet you any money that we all feel the same about the mistakes we've made and the things that we've done wrong along the way. So even though the stories are different, in a way, they're very much the same. What you have to do is determine that you've had enough of not feeling enough. And you have to realise that you are enough. You are enough to have good days. You are enough to have belief in yourself. You are enough to pick goals that you can go for. You are enough to have friends, acquaintances, lots of people that you don't have to feel guilty to, because you are much better than you think you are. Being enough is something that we all are, but a lot of us don't think so, because we've bombarded our brain with beating ourselves up for all these years. It's a thing that you have to take control of. You have to adjust your self-talk. You have to adjust your way of thinking, because you're holding yourself back from a good life. When you beat yourself up, when you tell yourself you're not good enough, you're undermining yourself. And the fact is, you are good enough. You are probably way, way better than you think you are. You have things about you that a lot of us don't have. I have things that you may not have. But the thing is, what we have is enough for us. We have enough for us to be enough. And I know it sounds like I'm labelling that point of enough, but you can't move on in life without it. If you didn't have enough, you would have fell behind. You wouldn't have got as far as you've got. And even if you don't think it's far enough, it's way better than a lot of people. On good days and on bad days, you have to look forward, because that's the only place that you're going to go. You can't go back and change all the things that have gone on before you. And the only way to look is now forward. And you have to think to yourself, and you have to realise that you can achieve so much more than you think you can. You're a much better person than you think you are. We're our own worst enemies, you know. I may say all of this stuff, and don't get me wrong, there are days when I feel I'm not enough too. But the truth is, when you look at it, you are. You're more than enough. You have more about you than you think. As we get older and we get that bit more experience in our lives, it's easy, I think, to look back and see that all those people that are confident, or that we think are confident, that are moving on in the world and they're doing this and making us feel inferior, the fact of the matter is, they're winging it just as much as you are. Because we all have those same doubts. We all have those same insecurities. But what we have to do is realise that even with those, we're better than we thought we were. When you think back and you look back in time, do you ever think of events that you're thinking of and laugh to yourself about what happened? And yet at the time it was like the world was on your shoulders. And that's because you've gained that experience of life And you've learned from what you did then. And it now doesn't seem anything. And it proves your point that you're more than enough because you've overcome all that. You are worthy of a better life than you've got. Especially if you feel down about what's happened to you in your life. The things that you've done in your life, the things that have gone wrong, the things that seem to stand on top of you, they were obstacles. And believe it or not, you've climbed over the obstacle and you've walked away from it. And you've moved on to the next obstacle, if you like. And each obstacle you came through, you've learnt from. You've gained more experience. You've gained more wisdom. You may not think it, but that's the truth. And when you start to tell yourself that you're enough, and when you start to believe in yourself, a whole new world opens. It's like a door opening and the sun shining in on you. You're better than you think you are. And that's my thing I want to tell you today. You are better than you think you are. And there will be some people who are watching this video who go, do you know what, James, you're right, I remember this and I remember that. Well, to you people, what I want you to do is write a comment down below and tell us about the times when you thought you weren't enough and the things you overcame and how you now look back on it and find it nothing nearly as close to being frightening as you were then. Do that and share it with our community, because there are other people out there who know that what I'm saying is right. And you are better than you think you are. And yes, you are enough. So what you have to remember going forward is to be kind to yourself. Because sometimes you are your own worst enemy. Give yourself a pep talk. Lift yourself up. Put a smile on your face as you go forward into the next day. If your thinking changes, once you realise how good you are, you'll never need to look back. And you'll never have to listen to people who try to give you constructive criticism, but really are just putting the boot in. 2025 is just around the corner and you can make it a better year. All you need to know is that you're much better than you think you are. I promise you, you are. The things that you've overcome, the obstacles you've faced, the slings and arrows that life have thrown on you, you've overcome them all to be where you are now. It may not be where you want to be, but knowing that you've overcome them and that you are enough should put a smile on your face and help you as you go towards where you want to go. And speaking of being enough, click that video over there on which I'll tell you 5 simple things to help you have more confidence as you move forward. I'll see you over there.